Well, let's turn to our panel now for some reaction to what we're hearing from Nancy Pelosi these days. Ed Schultz, host of the nationally syndicated Ed Schultz Show. Chris Plante, host of the Chris Plante Show that airs weekdays in WMAL in Washington. And Jonathan Martin, White House correspondent for Politico. Chris, let's start with you. What do you make of Nancy Pelosi and her position these days?
Well, she assumes a lot of different positions, doesn't she? I mean, she's a lightning rod because she's playing an extremely partisan political game, freezing the House Republicans out of the discussions on this largest spending bill in history, locking the door, doing it behind closed doors, not posting it on the internet as promised. And if she, I mean, look, she's a velvet fist. Is that what we had from our friend with the Rolling Stone? She is causing a lot of trouble in Washington. She's behaving imperiously. She's behaving as though we have one-party rule. And if she wants to have trials for Donald Rumsfeld or anybody else and bring in CIA field officers that engaged in the enhanced interrogation techniques that were approved by the Democratic leadership after explicit briefings by then CIA Chief George Tenet and by Dick Cheney himself, then let's do it because, the Democratic leadership was in this up to their ears. They're playing political games with this. And I got to tell you, if they want to bring 100 Jack Bauers up to Capitol Hill, these guys will eat these congressmen for lunch. So if they want to do this, that's great. And furthermore, if they're going to do it with the Bush administration, let's do it with the Clinton administration. They engaged in about 80 renditions themselves, and I sort of outsourced the dirty work. So if that's the game they want to play, let's play it. Bring it on.
Ed Schultz?
Well, Chris, first of all, you're wrong on a number of things. No one was excluded from this. They were included from the start. So let's get that fact out there correctly. Yeah. Secondly, I have interviewed both Mr. Conyers and Pat Leahy, and they have said repeatedly that justice has to be done through the process so the Congress in future years is not trivialized. The fact of the matter is Nancy Pelosi, on this other hand, is going after those who just are so negative. It's all over your side of the radio dial. You can't say anything positive about a president who hadn't even been in office for 30 days. He comes out today with a housing plan, and your leaders over on the right are sitting there criticizing it before it's even made public to anybody. So all you want to do is see the president of the United States fail. You don't want to give him a chance. The American people have spoken. They want housing relief. They want to be told what's happening out there, and that's exactly what's going down, and you guys can't take it.
Almost everything you've said is false or incorrect.
No, it's absolutely correct. And the fact is that your side of the dial has been spewing this stuff out for 30 days. You have no facts. The point is that the Republicans were included in all of this.
Let's bring in an arbitrator here. Jonathan Martin, who's right, who's wrong? Did Nancy Pelosi, did she not invite the Republicans in? How much were they brought in? And also, I would agree on the point that I do remember the Obama White House saying that any bill that was brought forward would have 5 days of public review. Am I wrong?
David, I feel like I'm in the middle of the AM dial right here, but let me try and sort some of this out. I think that there is certainly a case to be made that the Republicans did not actually have a chance to help write this bill. Certainly they were not in the room when it was drafted by Chairman David Obey of the Appropriations Committee in the House. But the fact of the matter is they were consulted, and a chief part of this bill.
So which is it? Were they involved in this or were they not involved in it? Come on, were they involved or not involved?
Well, once again, you were wrong.
I'm not going to play talk radio back and forth there, but let me just finish my statement. The fact is that a chief portion of this bill were those tax cuts, which, of course, the Republicans had pushed for. So I think there's truth here on both sides.
Well, and a lot of the tax cuts were taken out. And for example, in all these shovel-ready jobs that we're creating, these highway construction jobs that we're creating, they took out a Republican effort along the lines of E-Verify, which would have required the employers simply to verify that the people that they're hiring for these shovel-ready jobs were U.S. citizens. If we want jobs for U.S. citizens, let's hire U.S. citizens. But the Democrats pulled that out. So, and as Jonathan said, the Republicans were kicked out of the room. It was done behind closed doors.
You know what? It was just a battle. It was almost all-star wrestling.
All of the Republican contributions out before the bill was ever even voted on, and everybody knows it. Ed. And the reason nobody's listening to your end of the dial is because you don't have any facts straight. Okay, you want facts?
95% of the American people are going to get a tax cut out of this. This has got all kinds of tax credits in it. The fact is, the Obama campaign said early on this is exactly what they were going to do.
We're going to ask everybody to to stick around. By the way, they are around this entire back half, everybody, so stay tuned. Coming up, the man who replaced President Obama in the U.S. Senate is under investigation. Welcome back to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Time now for Smart Takes. Bye-bye, Senator Roland Burris, the junior senator from Illinois, whose surprise appointment to fill President Obama's Senate seat initially met resistance because of the perception of taint, is again in hot water. This morning, the Chicago Tribune pronounced itself tired of the here we go again feeling we're getting from Burris's changing stories and called on him to resign. Quote, the story gets worse with every telling. Enough. Roland Burris must resign. His protests that he had nothing to hide just don't square with his obvious attempts to hide something, as evidenced by the evolving truths in 3 sworn statements to the House impeachment panel. Now he has admitted that the governor's brother hit him up to raise campaign cash, and at least one conversation, Burris raised his prospects for being appointed to the Senate. There's only one honorable action for Burris: resign. Strip this whole wretched process out of the hands of the politicians and give it back to the people. Burris tried, for his part, again, to explain himself in remarks to the City Club of Chicago today. Watch.
Friends, I'm new in Washington, okay? They don't know me out there yet. They don't know me yet, okay? You know the real Roland. I am the real Roland.
Oh, my. Let's welcome back our panel, Ed Schultz, Chris Plant, and Jonathan Martin. Jonathan does the I'm an outsider, and that's why my character is under attack defense. Does that work?
I think it's the best shot he's got going right now, David. Look, in the short run, this is a problem for the Democrats. They don't need this distraction. It's bringing it back the ghost of Blago. You know, once he thought he was gone, he's still there. But, you know, I think ultimately, if he somehow is not pushed out and he is in office a year from now, David, this has actually got some upside for Democrats for this reason. They now don't have to have any qualms about taking him on in a primary. If you're Dick Durbin, the senior senator from Illinois, and you want to field a primary candidate against Burris, it's a heck of a lot easier now to do that. A lot of Democrats that I talk to now think that he will not be on the ballot in the fall of 2010.
Ed Schultz, do you agree, though, that the Senate Majority Leader Reid ought to push this guy out?
Well, I'm not going to spin this at all, David. This is baggage now for the Democrats. There are discrepancies in what he has said. There are discrepancies in some of the events that have unfolded. This is one problem that the Democrats in the Senate do not need, and it's Illinois politics that have infiltrated inside the Beltway. It's not good. It's headlines and conversation that the Democrats don't need right now. We got bigger fish to fry than have to mop up what Mr. Burris has got himself into. He needs to tell the truth. There has to be a full vetting process here on exactly the turn of events that unfolded, who he talked to, what was in those conversations. The Democrats in the Senate just don't need this. I don't think that he's going to be able to survive this. I think that he's going to have to end up giving up his seat.
Chris Plant?
Ed did a pretty good job with the facts there. I think he's got it about right. Yeah.
Nice shot, Chris. Can't answer that. Can't give us any good material, Chris. Just a shot at me. I get it.
But yeah, you got the facts. It's worth noting. Look, Roland Burris should be gone. He is a product of Illinois politics. I grew up on the North Shore of Chicago. I have family involved in Chicago politics.
That
and
explains
Illinois
your
politics.
answers.
And he's not. You know, the only person that is a product of Illinois politics that's moved inside the Beltway either. But Roland Burris should go. There should be a special election. Maybe they could run Ed Schultz in New York. You know, you've got Al Franken in Minnesota.
No, I'm not taking the pay cut. There's no way I'm going to do that.
We're getting a lot of questions now over Twitter. We're going to start Twitter time a little early. We're getting a lot of questions over this New York Post cartoon. Chris, I'm fascinated by your view of the New York Post cartoon that appeared to sort of liken the president to a chimpanzee. What'd you make of it?
Well, I think that it was a pretty lame stretch on the part of the New York Post trying to associate the shooting of a chimp in Connecticut with the stimulus bill. But you got to keep in mind that Nancy Pelosi wrote the stimulus bill, as we just covered, without the participation of Republicans. I don't think it got there. I hate to be on the same side of any issue with Al Sharpton, but it was a pretty lame cartoon.
Ed Schultz, your view?
It was scurrilous. It's despicable. It's unbelievable that something like this, I mean, I would equate this to the 7 words in broadcast that can't be spoken on American airwaves. I can't believe that this type of garbage and this kind of race baiting and hateful type of printing is allowed in this country. This is unbelievable. Rupert Murdoch, not the cartoonist, the person who owns the newspaper needs to speak up to this.
Hey, David?
Yes. Last word.
I was going to say, one final point, very, very important to note here on Burris tonight. Late development. Robert Gibbs, the president's press secretary, said coming back on Air Force One tonight that it was too early right now, I would put the emphasis on right now, to make a statement about Roland Burris before the investigations take place. That means the Senate Ethics Committee here in Washington, and then whatever else happens back in Illinois. So if the president is
that's a big problem. That is a big problem for this White House.
That means he isn't going to make it. That means he isn't going to make it.
They're sort of punting on this and waiting for an investigation. This is not a difficult call for this White House, and this may come back to haunt them if they let this drag out, if they're going to continue to say, oh, we're not going to make a statement. In any case, we got another segment ahead, and remember this? By the way, our panel is going to stick around. One more segment. Remember this? An Iraqi journalist throwing a shoe at